Hello, everyone. For our group, we decided to do the topic of homelessness in Canada and in the Windsor-Essex region. The Rossman's creative process has 7 steps, and the 7 steps are 1. Observation of a need or difficulty. 2. Analysis of the need. 3. A survey of all available information. 4. A formulation of all objective solutions. 5. A critical analysis of these solutions for their advantages and disadvantages. 6. The birth of the new idea, the invention. 7. Experimentation to test out the most promising solution and the selection and perfection of the final embodiment.
Hey guys, I'm sure as you are now aware, our project is on homelessness. We find that there is a huge need for shelter and aid for our homeless community. I'm sure that 99% of us, if not all of us, know what it means to be homeless. And I'm positive that at one point or another in our lives, we have all personally encountered someone who is homeless or living on the streets, in and out of shelters. I could say one thing, and I know most of you know who it is: Feather Hat Guy. Have you noticed that recently there seems to be many more homeless people around us? Have you noticed that you've been asked questions for money more? You've been being begged at more? It's so sad to think. There's estimated between 150 to 300,000 individuals that experience homelessness in Canada each year. That is every single year. That many people in this world are homeless. They don't have a home. They don't have a safe place to lay their head at night. They don't know when their next meal will be. When will they get money again? It's so sad to hear. Every year, more and more people are living below the poverty line and cannot afford their homes. Families find it difficult to create safe and comfortable places for their children, their pets, their relatives, and anyone else staying with them. They're forced to live on the streets, they're forced to be in and out of shelters, and are unaware of if they are safe where they're going. Windsor's housing prices alone makes it incredibly hard for people to afford living. Most families have to do everything they can just to avoid living paycheck to paycheck, and that's only for their rent. That doesn't include their toiletries, their extra expenses, their food, their clothing. Imagine they have a baby. That doesn't include diaper prices. It's absolutely crazy. Elderly people, students, young parents, and honestly, everyone in between feels the realities and the discrimination from our economy. It's sad to see that everyone gets painted with the same homeless brush. If you see a homeless person, automatically you're going to think, well, they did that to themselves. That was their doing. Maybe they're addicted. Maybe they're an alcoholic. Everybody always seems to paint them with the same brush. There are so many reasons that someone might be living on the street or have recently become homeless. We feel that there's a need to be more work opportunities for people who are struggling to get back on their feet. Another issue we find to be incredibly important is the need for more shelter and affordable housing in Windsor. There needs to be more available resources for people to get their lives back together. We need more opportunities and options for people to find shelter as they were working their way back to getting to whatever goal they have for themselves. As we go through our presentation, we will share with you the heartbreaking numbers and realities of the homeless population in our community. We will also share our ideas that we have to hopefully help slow down the forever rising number of homeless culture. I hope that you guys enjoy our presentation and you guys find maybe a little bit of interest in something like this. And hopefully one day we can really do something about our homeless culture in Windsor.
The amount of homeless people in Canada is on the rise. There are an estimated 35,000 Canadians that are homeless every night and 235,000 Canadians homeless every year. This problem, however, is very prominent right here in Windsor. We have around 5,700 people awaiting affordable housing with an estimated 1,200 that are experiencing homelessness or will experience it by the end of last year. With 170 people considered chronically homeless, of this amount, 50% are chronically homeless singles and 50% are chronically homeless youth, with 127 people requiring shelters or transitional housing. The demand is nationwide for help with these homeless people. And we think that it would be best to start right here with the problem that we face in Windsor, since this is where we're located. We know that if people are willing and able to make a change in their situation, that we can help better their lives and work together with them to give them the lives that they deserve.
So the third step of Rossman's creative process, after completing an analysis of the need, involves surveying all available information. So I began this process by researching the definitions and types of homelessness, the population of people experiencing homelessness in Windsor, the different qualifiers that impact a person's likelihood of experiencing homelessness, such as race and economic background, and whatever additional information I could find on homelessness in Canada. As I expected, it was pretty difficult to find exact and current numbers and percentages, but of the available information, I was able to determine that approximately 235,000 Canadians experience homelessness each year. In Windsor, it's expected that over 1,200 people experienced homelessness in 2019, but there's no newer data since this survey, and an additional almost 6,000 people in Windsor cannot afford their homes, which means that they are spending more than or about 50% of their income on housing. Another thing I discovered were the most common underlying causes of homelessness in Canada, which include but are not limited to poor physical or mental health, violence or abuse in the home, a lack of employment or income, a shortage of affordable housing. There are over 10% of Canadian families living below the poverty line right now, meaning that they are not able to meet even their most basic needs. Only 20% of people who experience homelessness in Canada are visibly homeless, which means that they survive on the street and we are able to identify just by looking at them that they're homeless. And the majority of Canadians supported by the government through social assistance programs or unemployment programs receive only $1,000 a month to survive. 22% of people experiencing visible homelessness in Windsor are Indigenous, which is a 29% decrease since 2016. And this is mostly due to the racist systems that have been in place in Canada since its founding that make this cycle of poverty virtually impossible for Indigenous people especially to escape. 42% of people experiencing visible homelessness in Windsor reported experiencing mental health issues in the previous survey done in 2019. And affordable and safe housing remains the biggest block for people to escape this dangerous cycle of homelessness.
Part 4, a formulation of all objective solutions. Based on the research done in the previous 3 steps of Rossman's creative theory, our objective solutions for homelessness in Ontario and in Canada lead us in the direction of the following 3 solutions. 1. To prevent homelessness in the first place. 2. To provide more emergency support systems for those who are currently homeless. Things like shelters, food banks, and day programs need to be readily available and need to hold a larger amount of individuals. 3. To create the appropriate housing as a means to move those individuals out of homelessness right now. For our target, we feel the best way to help the prevention of homelessness is to create tiny homes for the homeless. This will provide long-term shelter and will give us time to create a long-term plan to help homelessness in Ontario and in Canada.
So Cassie just explained all of the objective solutions of homelessness, so I'm going to explain the advantages and disadvantages of each point that she made. So advantages of preventing homelessness, obviously, the main one, just get people off the streets, get them the resources that they need, get them into stable environments. That is the main goal for all of this. And the step after that would be to offer them work. So they need to start applying to jobs so that they can start working in the workplace. This will also help employers who are looking to hire, so it benefits both. The only issue is that there's a bit of a stereotype that goes along with homelessness and working, just because people think that they don't have the skills needed to work like in a working environment. But I definitely think this could be overcome easily. Like, a lot of us start working when we're around 15 or 16 years old, and we don't necessarily have all of the skills either, but we're trained, and that's why we're fine. So I think that they can be trained in the same exact way. And then one last advantage is that this will lower the amount of deaths. Less people are going to be on the streets contracting diseases, and the amount of people dying of starvation will be a lot less too. So some disadvantages of preventing homelessness, that even sounds wrong to say. We don't like to think that there's any disadvantages, but one may be that the resources are not being utilized enough. So the time and the energy and the money being put into these resources, they're not being used enough. That would be a shame. Or could go the opposite way. There are enough people using them and then we run out of resources. So hopefully it's not the case for both. So advantages of providing emergency systems. This can definitely help in youth development. A lot of kids are homeless. They're not excluded from this equation at all. And so getting them into schools, getting them into safe households or living environments at all will definitely help in their development. So some disadvantages of providing emergency systems, a very selfish one, but it could destroy the economy, potentially, because the government is going to be funding a lot of this if they choose to support this, and so that could damage their economy in a way. And then lastly, advantages of appropriate housing. It will get people off the streets, get them into safer environments, like I've mentioned a few times before. And it helps with decreasing crime activity. So a lot of the crimes that take place with people who are homeless are nuisance offenses. They're not necessarily that big of a crime, but these crimes could definitely escalate. So that's what we don't want. And some of these that can escalate could be like breaking and entering. And then some disadvantages of appropriate housing. These houses or the living conditions that they're in may not be fully funded in the first place. So gathering money for them to pay these bills might be really hard for them.
Hi guys, so I'm going to be talking to you about our ideas and basically our potential plans of action. So first off, before we can do anything, we need to raise money. So it's hard to make change in this world without having a financial backing with you. So the first step of our plan would be to raise money. That way we can help homeless people in Windsor even further, right? So the best way to do this would be to use the University of Windsor campus as our platform. So we could use the University of Windsor by contacting students, like reaching students through social media and putting flyers around the school. One thing we could do is we could make an Instagram page, like our group, basically, and that would help get our message across. Once we do this and we're actually able to go back to school, obviously we can't do it right now with the coronavirus pandemic, but once we're able to go back, we could be able to set up things like bake sales and other fundraisers to help raise money. Once we have this, we could get into association with organizations around the city that help homeless people as well, and we could set up things like job fairs, right? So with the job fairs, this would give homeless people an equal opportunity to be able to get jobs. So one hard thing about homeless people having job interviews that people often talk about is them being like quote unquote dirty and other things like that, and not having nice hair and other stuff like that. So what we could do is we could use like from the money we get from the fundraisers, we could use the St. Clair cosmetology and hairdressing. This would give them haircuts and make them look nice before their interviews at the job fair. So like we could do that like right outside the job fair, right? And then they walk in. Could even bring in outfits too for them, like nicer outfits and suits and stuff like that. We could rent suits for them. Another thing we could do with our money is we could hold soup kitchens, right, for less fortunate individuals, especially during the colder months, because often they're looking for a hot meal, right? So this would help them both with hunger and then also with morale. Like giving them like a nice meal would it really goes a long way in boosting their spirits. Another thing we could do is we could start a clothing drive at the University of Windsor. That way we're able to donate jackets for the colder month, for the winter.